Welcome to week 5 of Nursing 401. We're going to start with Chapter 8. This week we're covering Chapter 8 and Chapter 9. Chapter 8 is the skills and principles of mental health care, and Chapter 9 is mental health assessments. There will be two different YouTube videos with this, but this one here is over Chapter 8, skills and principles of mental health care. It is first to 3 slides are the learning objectives. I'm going to let you guys read through those and yourself. And I'm just going to get started with the lecture on skills and principles of mental health care. So the mentally healthy adult. Health is a changing state that is influenced by genetics, behavior, and the environment. Mental health reflects changing status as the stresses of life are encountered. Mentally healthy adults are content with who they are and where they are in life. Mentally healthy adults are persons who can cope with and adjust in an acceptable way to the recurrent stresses of daily living. Even though mentally healthy adults can and do experience unhappiness, anxiety, or other psychic distresses, they have the ability to manage and rise above the negativity and continue on with their lives. Mental illness results when an individual's problems are so overwhelming that one is unable to carry out ADLs or function independently. And the one thing we have to remember is the definition of mental illness does vary with culture. Practicing the principles of mental health care is a responsibility of all healthcare providers, regardless of the specialty or setting you work in, and it will be utilized throughout our careers because every healthcare giver helps clients cope with their problems. No matter how casual a client may appear, a heightened stress level is present every time interactions take place with healthcare providers. And some mentally ill clients will seek treatment immediately, where others will wait it out. The 7 principles of mental health care. Do no harm. Accept each client as a whole person. Develop a mutual trust. Explore behaviors and emotions. Encourage responsibility. Encourage effective adaptation and provide consistency. So starting with do no harm, the care provider has a responsibility to protect clients. No matter what the circumstances, avoid any action that may result in harm to your client. The do no harm principle also relates to the reasonable and prudent nurse caregiver concept found in U.S. law. Do no harm is a guide for all therapeutic actions. And we, as nurses, are responsible for protecting our clients, especially our mental health clients. The main therapeutic tool of mental health providers is the self. So, we need to remember to avoid any action that may result in harm to our client. The next is accept each client as a whole person. Differences do not have to be understood, but they must be accepted. Holistic healthcare is based on the concept of whole, and we have to consider the client's actual or potential problems and the client's family, work responsibility, and social aspects of life. Viewing clients holistically also involves acceptance of their lifestyles, attitudes, social interactions, and living conditions. If one passes judgment, the client will sense your disapproval and therapeutic actions will not be successful. So be an advocate for your client. And remember, their behavior is an attempt to fill a need. Develop mutual trust. Trust forms the basis of success or failures of all actions. Trust is the foundation of therapeutic relationships. And so trust implies cooperation, support, and willingness to work together. For care providers, the concept of trust holds much importance. Like I just said, trust is the foundation of therapeutic relationships. And trust between the client and the caregiver involves three concepts: caring, empathy, and advocacy. So we have to be a client advocate. Being a client advocate, we can assist our clients to remember appointments. So just remember, we do have to develop that mutual trust. Explore behaviors and emotions. Every behavior serves a purpose and has meaning. Behavior consists of perceptions, thoughts, feelings, and actions. By sharing perceptions, the healthcare provider can help clients see how their behavioral messages are being received by other people. Sometimes they're actions. Some communicate with actions as they're unable to verbally share the meaning of their behaviors. So, we also have to remember that alcohol and drugs can affect both behavior and emotions. And the first step towards gaining some control over one situation is to recognize behaviors that are ineffective and replace them with more appropriate actions. Encourage responsibility. That is the goal of mental health, is responsibility. One of the first steps relates to the care itself. Are there basic needs? They have to be met. Maslow's, don't forget Maslow's. And the second step is they have to be accountable for one's emotions. So responsibility infers that a person is able to exercise capability and accountability. Encouraging responsibility helps build self-worth, dignity, and confidence, and assists clients in learning more successful coping behaviors. Nurses and other professionals plan and implement specific interventions designed to help clients achieve their highest possible level of responsibility. So remember, our primary mental health intervention is to help build self-worth, dignity, and confidence. Encourage effective adaptation. All mental health clients exhibit unsuccessful coping behaviors. Mental health care providers encourage the following: one step at a time, crisis intervention, learning of coping mechanisms. And recovery begins when attempts to cope with the problem results in success. So the providing the mental health care providers encourage the one step at a time. It's important that we give instructions simply and repeat them often. There's 2 points. First, do not assume, assess. And the second point is success is built on many small steps. Crisis intervention. We want to help individuals and families manage their crisis situation by offering immediate emotional support. And coping mechanisms, are any thought or action aimed at reducing stress. So, the thing of it is with crisis intervention, that is where usually their coping mechanisms are not effective. They're ineffective. They're just not working for them. Their crisis is self-limiting. And usually during a crisis intervention, it usually affects more than just one person. And so we want to replace maladaptive behaviors with more effective actions and to help to improve their abilities to live more successfully. And there's also a thing such as pseudo-resolution, and that is when nothing is learned from the crisis and the opportunity for growth was missed. because with unresolved crisis results when maladaptive behaviors are used to hide the problems. And guidelines, like I say, for crisis intervention care is needed immediately. We need to take control. We need to do an assessment. The client's disposition is determined. We need to make referrals. And once we make referrals, we need to make sure we follow up to ensure they followed up with the referrals that were given. And provide consistency. Consistency of a behavior implies steady, regular, and dependable. Consistency usually is addressed in a client's plan of care. It's important for each care provider to respond by giving the same message, as clients will test staff members by placing or playing one against another, or by attempting to manipulate the situation. Guidelines for providing consistency involve setting limits and focusing on the positive changes that clients are making. Always inform the clients of the limitations and their willingness to cooperate with the plan of care. Routines are important because routines can teach clients about values of reliability, consistency, and stability. So for providing consistency, we want to give instructions simply, and we want to repeat them often. Skills for mental health care providers. Caregivers act as role models for good mental and physical health. They serve as therapeutic instruments. They're expected to help solve problems while graciously coping with a variety of personalities. The caregiver's approach to clients must be monitored and adjusted continually to practice effectively. And also, the caregiver must convey a consistent, thoughtful effort directed toward developing an awareness of self and others to make a positive therapeutic use of your personality. The caregiver's self-awareness. Self-awareness is the ability to objectively look within, allows individuals to direct and mold the pattern of their lives, to be in charge of their own growth and development, because development of self-awareness requires time, patience, and willingness to routinely consider your own behaviors, attitudes, and values. So the caregiver who encourages self-awareness must also practice self-awareness. Caring. Caring is a concern for the well-being of another person. The clients need to know you care before they will trust you. Caring is a glue that binds individuals to each other, and caring cannot be taught. It must be developed, encouraged, and molded into the therapeutic personality of the caregiver. Empathy is the ability to recognize and share the emotions of another person without actually experiencing them. Empathy is a very powerful therapeutic tool because it can help reestablish one's self-worth and dignity. And behaviors associated with caring include accepting, comforting, being honest, listening attentively, and having sensitivity. Also, make sure you advocate for your clients, as individuals with mental or emotional difficulties are not always capable of making informed decisions themselves. Insight. Insight is the ability to see clearly and understand the nature of things. It relies on common sense, good judgment, and prudence. Self-awareness is developed through the practice of introspection. which is the process of looking into one's own mind, let's start that over. Introspection, which is a process of looking into one's own mind, analysis of one's feelings, their reactions, attitudes, opinions, and behaviors. There is professional introspection, which is research at least one question or topic each day that relates to the care of your client. Personal introspection, learning who you are, valuable tool for developing self-awareness. So your personal introspection is a very valuable tool for developing self-awareness. Knowledge breeds competence, and from competence grows confidence to provide the best possible care. Risk-taking and failure. Risk-taking implies a possibility of failure. Failure can be filled with positive growth-promoting experiences. Failure provides the opportunity for change. It encourages creativity and stimulates learning. We grow from our failures. When one fails, only when one refuses to grow from the experience. So first and most important step is to understand failure is a necessary part of change. Second, give yourself permission to fail. Third, consider your failure as a learning experience. And fourth, discover the opportunities that are created by failure. Acceptance. Acceptance means receiving the entire person and the world in which he or she functions. Accepting clients does not necessarily include approving of their behaviors. That's an important distinction. You must accept the person, but you do not have to accept the behavior. And as care providers, we must accept the entire person. We need to focus on correcting behavior versus focusing on correcting the person. So caregivers must give the clients respect and the opportunity to participate in their care if treatment is to be successful. Boundaries and over-involvement. We have professional boundaries, and they must be defined by caregivers. Professional boundaries can be crossed when caregivers become too helpful or too controlling. And they may have difficulty setting limits, which can result in conflict. And professional boundaries must be balanced because one cannot focus on the client and the self at the same time. Compassion, empathy, and acceptance are vital elements of healthcare, but they must be balanced by professionalism, judgment, and therapeutic actions that meet the client's needs. Commitment. Caregivers must be committed to providing competent healthcare, no matter what the setting or circumstances. And self-commitment involves a promise to do the best you can in every situation and to be the best that you can be. So first and most important is the commitment to yourself. Because as healthcare providers, we are committed to caring about the welfare of humankind. Positive outlook. Focusing on the positive aspects of a situation leads to a greater chance of success. One tool for developing self-awareness is a positive or optimistic attitude. Positive attitudes and thoughts can act as buffers against stress and conflict. Think about it this way. People are attracted to individuals with positive attitudes. A person with a negative attitude tends to discourage individuals. But you always want to help develop a more positive attitude. You want to help the client recognize negative thoughts, emotions, and attitudes. And the thing of it is that positive attitudes and thoughts can act as buffers against stress and conflict. It can also prevent caregiver burnout. So developing a positive attitude. Listen to your self-talk. Change recurrent negative themes. Be your own cheerleader. Visualize future successes and act the part. And last but not least is nurturing yourself. Recognize and tend to your own needs. That is a very critical first step, is to recognize and tend to your own needs. Encourage client development. Because when we as nurses nurture someone, what do? We encourage the client development in a client. And to effectively care for your clients, you must first nurture yourself. On page 90, box 8-6 is a box regarding different steps that you can do or take to nurture yourself. So be knowledgeable. Value each individual as a human being. Be responsible and accountable for your actions. Be open to new ideas. Connect with others. Support your colleagues. Take pride in yourself. Like what you do. Recognize the moments of joy and the struggles of living. Take time to smell those roses. Recognize and accept your own limitations, but strive to improve. At the end of the day, focus on your accomplishments rather than the things left undone. And last but not least is rest each day and begin anew.